So
Yeah,
how are you, my friend? How are you?
I am well. Yeah, it's been a with this full moon energy, I've been feeling it very strongly, even the build up just the last couple of days. And today, yeah, it feels very charged.
Hmm.
It
What?
feels very charged. And I had a beautiful meeting with a soul brother just earlier today. And yeah, just charged of energy, the beautiful connections that are happening. And this now too.
You said you had a meeting with a soul brother?
Yeah, somebody that another friend, a mutual friend that connected us, that was very adamant about us meeting. He said, "You two gotta connect." And when sometimes you meet people and you just know, I gotta introduce this friend to another friend. So it was like that. And definitely a very strong soul connection. So we ended up exchanging a lot of um, resonance and life and experiences, and the richness of having a soul connection with somebody.
Of course, of course. And on times like these with the full moon energy, because I guess maybe, not everyone is so sensitive to that kind of energy, but how do you feel that you're very sensitive to this kind of energy in particular?
Well, I feel my way through
Mhm.
life. Yeah. And so it's just different things that I experience in my body or in my psyche. My dreams have been very active this past week. And this morning I rose just super charged up. And I'm not saying that it only happens on a full moon. Yeah, yet there's this feeling of fullness of some sort, and that's what the full moon is. It's this fullness. It's the time to release and harvest at the same time.
O-
Release an old energy and then usher in something new.
Okay.
So this full moon in particular, just the energy behind it in Aquarius. Aquarius is about reinvention and
Hmm.
an upgrade. It also has a lot to do with friendships and connections and community.
Wow, very coincidental, you know,
Yeah.
coincidental connection, community, that consciousness of coming together, you know. It's interesting too, Noah, because as you're talking about the full moon of, releasing, letting go, and also harvesting, I guess over the years, there are certain aspects of, the planetary bodies and the full moon in particular that I guess was kind of demonized for me. I don't know if maybe for other people they were raised seeing things differently, but I know that in the media, in Hollywood and movies and TV and cartoons, like, it was looked upon as like, you know, the the freaks come out at night, the lunatics, lunatics, the full moon lunatic, right? And then the werewolves, right? The werewolves, of course, howling at the full moon, right? And terrorizing people during the full moon, going crazy, pandemonium during the full moon. Why do you feel like these kind of things were spread? When you say it, it sounds very healing, but when someone else says it, it's kind of revealing. Yeah.
Well, anything that has been demonized is an invitation for us to ask the deeper question. What's behind that thing that it had to be demonized? So have I don't like to say that, but the moon itself and the full moon has been demonized because it's a representation of what the moon represents. And the moon is the feminine. The moon in astrology is one of the luminaries. The sun and the moon are the luminaries. The sun is associated with the masculine energy, and the moon is associated with the feminine energy. And so throughout history, the feminine has been suppressed and demonized. And also the moon represents our emotions, our feelings, our inner child, which has been also suppressed. Don't feel, don't follow your emotions, don't be emotional. Women, right, there's like, oh, women are crazy, lunatics, right? Because they're moody or because they feel so much. So women have been seen as crazy or emotional. So underneath all that reputation is the desire to suppress the feminine, to disassociate people and humans from their feeling body, from their intuition. And the full moon can definitely bring about the monsters, you can say, but only if they are living inside of oneself. So if you have parasites, they're going to become active more so during the full moon, which is one of the reasons why people may do some crazy stuff, because they're being possessed. Their consciousness is being possessed by either actual physical parasites or energetic parasites. Because we got to look at not just the parasites that can actually biologically, physiologically can live in the body, but there are many other energetic parasites that can feed off our energies and our emotions and our mental activity that may be stronger during a full moon, and that's why people may lose it.
Wow.
And go crazy during a full moon when there's no awareness around who's actually occupying this space.
Okay. So the key is awareness.
Always.
Okay. Wow, Noah. Thank you for bringing in that piece. Thank you for bringing in that perspective, because, even as you were speaking, Nabiha down below was saying that when the moon is full, I can feel overflow of emotions. So I always feel like it's time to let a lot go. When it is new moon, I feel different. It's like when it's full, I am full too, she says. So that's interesting what you're talking about, energetic. Wow. The energetic, like parasites and different things taking over the vessel. I mean, have you ever felt certain things like that? Like when it comes to energetic parasites, what has that felt like if you've experienced that?
Yeah, for sure. Even just recently, Jerome, because there's a lot of energies at play at the moment. Um, I don't like to, at the end of the day, it's all one and it's all beautiful, and there's no dark and light in the sense of opposing forces. It really is all one God, and it's one big playground of one divine source. That's just what I believe in. And on planet Earth, as we do live in this world of duality, there is the play of what we call dark and light. Yeah. And so because the light is getting stronger and stronger, the dark forces are pushing against that more and more. And we even experience that in our own personal lives, right? The more we awaken, the more we ascend and elevate ourselves, the more challenges we encounter, inner challenges, right? The dark forces within us that are trying to resist change or trying to pull us down back to whatever habits or patterns and such. So there's that inner journey that we experience, and constantly allowing ourselves to be filled with more and more light, so the dark forces don't have that much power over us, right? That's the journey that we are on. And so we see that happening on the planet as a whole, because consciousness is expanding, more people are waking up, the light is becoming stronger and stronger, and so the dark forces are not happy with that. It's just like parasites, yeah? They don't want to leave, you're the host. Yeah, so the more we starve the parasites, the more they're kicking and screaming with cravings and whatnot, like feed us, we don't want to go. And this is our journey, to not cave in, to not give into those parasitic energies. Yeah, so answering your question, because there is this expansion of light in human consciousness on the planet, the dark forces are pushing against it. And so what I've been experiencing, what I call, is this interference in the field. But yeah, and that can show up, or at least in my experience, it shows up as confusion, like not being clear. And I can tell that it's something trying to interfere with a signal. When you have a cell signal and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, the signal, I'm losing signal. Right? There's like this interference, and something that I feel is trying to influence my decision making, or trying to move me in a particular direction that I certain this is not what I want to do or where I want to go. So those can be looked at as energetic parasites, like something that is trying to control either one's emotions, one's thinking, thoughts, and then even behavior. So that's been my personal experience. And as I said, the last couple of weeks, just very strong, being aware of there's something here that I'm aware is not my true self.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember you were mentioning something about like like not a whirlwind, but a roller coaster. Like there was a huge roller coaster recently, maybe during this year that you've been growing through and going through and flowing through. And I would love to hear more about what you can talk about, when it comes to this journey, when it comes to your learnings, when it comes to your growing, but when it comes to your knowing. Like what do you hold on to? What do you cling to during these roller coaster periods? And how has that transpired for you?
Wow. Well, one thing is that I've learned is to actually not hold on to anything.
Okay.
Like on a roller coaster ride, it's actually like just lift your arms up in the air and just let go. Yeah, and in a sense, just letting the ride take me. And what I would say is my anchor point. So not so much that I'm definitely not clinging to anything and not holding on to anything. My anchor point is God. I know it sounds like a cliche and it's not a religious thing whatsoever. It's when I say God, to me is life. It's this force that is the energy behind all of this, that is completely unexplainable. It's the force that gives everything life. It's the force that brings a sperm and egg together, and 9 months later you have a human. It's the force that makes a fruit tree out of a little seed. It's the force behind everything, right? And so to me, that's the anchor point. It's knowing that there's a divine plan.
Yeah.
Some may call it naive, and that's okay.
No, not at all. Not at all, Noah. You know, I've never seen you as naive, Noah. You know, when we met each other, I mean, at the festival, I remember seeing you and you were behind the counter, you were, you know, doing a whole lot of things, but you were in flow, you were like, you were in an element where you were in service, you know, you were in service to others. I would come there, I would grab a juice, I would grab a kombucha, I would grab whatever, and, you know, we would just have this look at this dynamic with each other that we knew we almost had the same eyes. Like we knew that, yeah, these other people, like, yeah, like it's all love, but we kind of you know, we could see each other a little bit differently than everyone else. So when it comes to the force, you know, the all that is this divine force that you speak of, when was the first time that you really recall witnessing or feeling this force and really being in the awareness that this is it, like this is the force that sustains us?
Wow, Jerome, I have no idea. It's a toughy one for me to answer in terms of putting my finger, this was the exact moment or a period in my life, because I look back at my life as the Noah. Ever since I was a kid, my eyes were open. Now I know, looking back. I didn't know back then. But I remember, since I can remember myself, I remember looking around and questioning this world, or just like, what is this place? And questioning a lot of the structures that we know to be normal. I remember as a little kid, I was asking questions about, why do we need money? Like I just didn't understand this whole paper thing that I give someone, and it just felt really odd. I was questioning, I was asking my parents, like, why do I need a passport? And I didn't understand governments, or what is a prime minister, or all of that was very foreign to me. And I felt like a fish out of the water. Throughout all of my school years, I felt like a fish out of the water. And that's also one of the reasons why I've always been a rebel. I've always been out of the box from the moment I can remember myself. So in some way, shape, or form, now that I look back, I've always had that seed in me. And yeah, it's just hard for me to say, like, this was the moment where I realized that all is one, because yeah, I guess it's been a journey. I don't feel that there was the awakening and that's it. There's always, like, we keep awakening. Awakening this, right? Yeah. And so, because I can look back in moments even like 10 years ago or whatever, that I thought, oh my God, yeah, I've awakened. But now, like, oh man, I was still asleep in so many other ways, right? So yeah, I was probably in like early 20s when I got into yoga. It was a big awakening that started in my life, and this metaphysical understanding of life came about more strongly.
Okay. When yoga came around, you
Yeah,
said?
yoga was a big catalyst for my healing, for my awakening. So yeah, that was early 20s. But you know, Jerome, I just always had that faith in my heart.
Yeah.
Just unexplainable, not knowing what I knew, but it was just like this unexplainable knowing of something.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you, you know, because even speaking of yoga, Noah, you know, like in different, I guess, you know, the Hindu traditions or Indian traditions, like, or even just the spiritual deities of your name, like Lakshmi, you know, Lakshmi. I used to chant the Lakshmi mantra, you know, the Mahalakshmi mantra. I would chant that, and I would remember revering, you know, the deity of Lakshmi and just what she represents, the goddess, you know, the goddess Lakshmi. So, you know, with yoga, with these different traditions, with these different things, were they always with you, or were they some things that you adopted along the way?
Yeah, there were definitely things that I adopted along the way as I was learning. And I always let intuition guide me and lead me, in the sense of, I didn't know anything about yoga. You know, it was not like, oh, I read it. You know, we all have different stories and different journeys. To me, I started yoga in New York. You know, I lived in New York for 7 years, and somebody was telling me about Bikram yoga. That was my entry point to the yoga world. So if you're not familiar, Bikram yoga is like the hot yoga.
Mm-hmm.
It's super militant. It's super intense.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, I wasn't like seeking spirituality or the yoga philosophy by all means. I was just, somebody was telling me about yoga, hot yoga, that you burn a lot of calories and it's a great workout. And I that was the door for me. That's all I needed to hear, you know? And so I went to my first Bikram yoga class and I was hooked. And as the Scorpio that I am, and I know you can relate to that, Scorpio brother, is that when we get into something and it gets us, we get so passionate and it's like full in, 100%. If there's one thing about Scorpio, and it can be a double-edged sword, right? It can be extreme. So it's like 100%, I'm in it, and never look back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bikram yoga was my thing. I was in that hot, smelly, stinky, sweaty room 6-7 days a week.
Wow. Wow.
And everything started to shift.
Wow.
Without me seeking it, because our soul is very clever. Our soul is going to lead us to certain avenues and certain experience, sometimes in disguise. Like for me, it was, oh, I can burn calories and, you know, it's a great workout. My soul is like, ha ha ha, she has no idea what we had in store for her. You know, and so I got hooked, and then a year later, I just got the calling. I'm meant to teach this. Okay. And that was my first yoga training, and that was a complete life-changing experience. And I basically just lived and breathed Bikram yoga for many years. I was teaching and practicing, and my life was a hot yoga room for several years. You know, I wasn't interested in any other forms of yoga, and that was literally my life for several years. Yeah, so I have much gratitude for Bikram yoga, but just yoga as a whole, because it's a way of living. It's not just, oh, I'm going to do my practice for 60 or 90 minutes. It's a way of living. Yoga is a way to live. And that's something that has been unfolding in my life for, the last couple of decades. Okay. And have a deeper understanding and embodiment of yoga, truly for what it is, which is union, which is the journey for all of us to return home.
And what inspired you about Lakshmi? You know, what inspired you about that name in general?
She came to me again. That was not, oh, I'm gonna change my name to Lakshmi. I was living in Hawaii, and I was about to actually leave the island after a year of not leaving. And I felt that there was a shift in my life coming. And one day, or one evening, shortly before I left the island, a friend of mine and I were just playing with cards, you know, like oracle cards and stuff. And one of the decks that she had was it was like Divine Goddesses deck or something. And I was just like shuffling, and we were talking, and I was shuffling and talking, and we had such a great time. And boom, all of a sudden, a card just fell in my lap, and it was Lakshmi. And something in me was like, oh, this is my name now. I'm going to adopt this as my name. And I didn't want to change my first name necessarily. It was my last name that I felt, okay, I'm ready for. It was a new adventure that I was about to embark on, and it felt suitable. And I want to share this, Jerome, because that was fascinating to me. So I adopted the name Lakshmi, and it was a couple of years later that it became official, meaning like my passport, my driver license, like everything was Lakshmi. So that was the final, like, okay, the other last name is completely gone. It's not just I'm both, but now completely gone. Lakshmi is official, right? I had kind of like this intuitive reading with a psychic about a year after I had changed my name officially, and it was online. She didn't even see me. He was just over the phone, and she asked me for my name, and I told her, well, do you need I've changed my name, my last name, so do you need my actual name? Or she said, yeah, I need both. So I gave her both, and on the day of the reading, she said, well, I'm not surprised that you actually changed your last name, because the other last name that you had meant the unmarried one. And she said, by changing that name, you actually changed your destiny.
Whoa.
Because she was working with numerology, you know, and letters can be translated into numbers, and
Okay.
yeah.
You changed your destiny.
She said, yeah. She said, you changed the course of your life, because it meant what you had. It was the unmarried one, which to me is definitely can be quite the curse, because I know I'm meant for divine union, right? So yeah, it was very interesting to hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you really felt that, like when she gave you that, when she told you that, you really felt like your course had been corrected or just shifted?
Shifted.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like there are multiple timelines that are available to us in any given moment.
Okay.
I believe there are some destined points, right? We have seeds that are planted in us that are going to germinate in this current life. And like if you meant to live without food or come into this Breatharian journey, this is a seed that was planted in your soul before you came here. So it's not, some have it, some don't. That's why there's no room to convince or to compare or to judge anything or anyone. It's just, you meant for this. It's destiny. Meeting of people, right? It's destined for some connections to come together no matter what. So there are some destined mile markers, so to speak, or events or experiences during our lives that we are meant to have. And at the same time, there are different timelines that are available to us of how we are going to move about life while hitting those different points.
Right.
So we can always course correct and move from one timeline to another timeline, and that's going to yield a different experience.
And it can even be as changing your name. Wow. Changing your name changes the course of your life. That is amazing.
Well, and you know what, Jerome? It's I even feel it now with my first name. When we transform, it's as if the name is like a suit that we are wearing, right? Like Jerome, Noah, whatever the name is, or if it's the last name. It's like a suit that we are wearing. It's a certain persona, it's a certain identity, it's a hat. And so we can transform so much to a point in which the name just doesn't fit anymore. It's like a shirt that just doesn't feel right on my body no more. Like I look in the mirror and I'm like, you know what? I don't like this dress anymore. It just doesn't feel right. I feel that is the same with names, because as I said, even my first name, it's been, especially this past year, that I have been feeling this, Noah just doesn't resonate. You know, it's like resonance. It's like Noah doesn't resonate with me no more. It feels like, okay, something that I've lived as the Noah, and there's something else or something different. It just hasn't been clear. Nothing clear has landed for me as a new name. And I do love what my name means, which is to be free. In Hawaiian, it means to be free. So it does represent me beautifully. But yeah, this has been my experience with names, is that it's like it's an outfit, it's a costume that doesn't fit anymore, and it doesn't feel right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, as well as you were speaking, you touched a little bit on if someone is called to this journey when it comes to like the Breatharian journey or the Pranic journey. And before you mentioned that you had a lot of out of box thinking coming up and rebellious nature growing up. How did your out of box thinking and your rebellious nature, how did that play into Pranic living?
Well, just throughout my life, or just now?
Yeah, now, like, how does that play into this journey for you?
Well, I'm not surprised, that I am on this journey, because in the world that we live in, and this is for all of us that share this gnosis, that share this inclination to live in this way, it's a rebellious act to some degree, especially when it comes to food. It's like it's everywhere. It's so strong. It's all around us. And to even change, it's, even if it's not like fully being food free and not consuming at all, even just the act of not eating cooked food, for example, or moving away from things that are so socially acceptable in this day and age is considered to be a rebellious thing. Like, you are out of the box. In many places, like if you don't eat meat, you are a weirdo. I remember, because I stopped eating meat when I was 12, and it wasn't, there was no influence. I wasn't reading any books or Googling anything. I just put the dots together, and I was never a big meat eater. There's still many things that I've never eaten in my life when it comes to flesh. I actually never had red meat, because even when I ate meat, it was mainly chicken, and I was never into fish. So the only flesh that I actually consumed up until the age of 12 was chicken. So I never had red meat. I realized that a few weeks ago when I was conversing with a friend. I'm like, wait a second, I actually never had red meat.
And how did you put the dots together? Like, how did you not need anything to help you put the dots together? What within you
Well,
put those dots together?
that was just, yeah, my soul, the God knowing inside of me, that I one day was looking at whatever, it was a burger or something, and I said, I realized that wait a second, this is an animal. It's a cow. This was one day a cow. And after that, I just told my mom, don't bring me this anymore. I don't want to eat meat. And that was it.
You told her?
Yeah.
And she said, okay?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. She was that supportive.
Yeah. Bless my parents that always been maybe not understanding or agreeing, but very supportive. Yeah, there was no pushback on her side. I mean, I don't remember. Maybe she did ask questions, but there was no like, oh no, you have to eat meat, or no, not at all.
Wow. Wow. You
Yeah.
said, don't bring me this anymore. And she
Yeah.
said, okay, honey.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I told her I don't want this, and guess what, Jerome? I was addicted to not JFK, KFC, right? And I would beg her to go to the mall, you know, to go to KFC pretty much every day. And she said, "Are you sure you don't want to go to KFC anymore?" I'm like, "Nope, it's a chicken." Like I just realized it's like it was a living chicken one day before it became KFC. So she was kind of like, you know, trying to poke me and like, "You sure KFC is like your favorite thing?" I'm like, "Not anymore."
Yeah, yeah. What you say, Noah, is so telling. You know, it's even frightening just to hear those words because there's such a dissonance. It's like a cognitive dissonance. There's a disconnect. And I see this when I connect the dots with my life, and then also when I see children connecting the dots, when I see other people connecting the dots. Like you said something so key. You said it was a chicken before it became KFC. You know, it was a chicken. Like, no, I don't want to eat that. It was a chicken. Like it was a living being. It was a sentient being with eyes, with a heart, with emotions, with feelings, with a family. You know, it was a chicken, you know? And it's hard for a lot of people to just put those two things together, you know, to put this with that together. You know, if you've ever observed children, like Nabiha has told me that she will tell a child who who eats a lot, you know, of animals, like, don't you know what you're eating? Like, you know what that is, right? And a lot of times they don't even know what that is. Like they realize when they realize what that, they're like, that's what that is, you know, like that's what I'm eating. And I've been in these fast food restaurants and I've seen, you know, parents kind of like, you know, airplaning these burgers into their child and these fries and these chickens, and like they're just trying to give their child this food, and you see the look on the child's face and it's like they don't really want it, but they have to have it because the parent is providing and they're trying to teach the child this is what you need, you know. So wow, you just really you really hit home for me with that one. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. That was my experience.
Yeah.
You know, I feel as I look back on my life, you know, when I reflect back, it's undeniable just how much the grace of God has been moving through my life for all of us. I mean, we all have our own divine orchestration in our own personal experiences. So it's amazing to look back and reflect on all of it in the journey from there till now, which I feel, and I actually shared this just a few months ago in another conversation, because I do astrology, right? So I track the cycles and such. So that moment when I decided to stop eating meat when I was 12, that was 30 years ago, and it's a Saturn cycle, and that was the beginning of the pranic journey for me. And I just love, Jerome, I stumbled upon your post with this beautiful little poetry that you shared regarding the seed and the fruit. That when we plant the seed, we're not going to harvest the fruit 5 minutes later or even 5 months later. And for some fruits, it's not even 5 years later. Some fruits take even up to 10 years to actually produce the fruit. And this is the thing about this Breatharian journey, that it's, well, number one, the seed has been planted even before we came here. And in this human soup that we are in and on this journey, there's going to be a process and a journey until the fruit is harvested. And it's even like, for me, there's no like finish line. There's no like, oh, we're going to harvest the fruit and it's done. No, it continues to evolve and it continues to grow, and we might harvest one fruit and then we can release the seed of that fruit into the ground, and that is going to produce a new tree, and then there's going to be an orchard one day, right? So it's just going to continue to expand. So I reflected back a few months ago and I realized the significance of that moment of being initiated into this journey in this life, that moment when I put the dots together and decided to stop eating meat, and the journey that I've been on since that moment. But back then, of course, as a 12-year-old, I wasn't like thinking about breatharianism, at least not
No.
consciously. It was just starting to change the way I was eating and what I was putting in my body, and starting really cleansing my body
Right.
by removing the dead flesh.
Right.
Mm.
So if that was 30 years ago, then when did you start like consciously thinking about breatharianism, living on light, living
Yeah,
pranic?
well,
Yeah, when did that consciously come in?
consciously, I would say more like the last 4 years.
Okay.
But, and this is part of what we wanted to discuss here today, and that I contacted you, is actually why when I experienced what we call in our society an eating disorder. So when I was in high school, I wanted to be skinny, right? I just stopped eating, or I would eat like an apple a day. And again, back then I had no idea about breatharianism or living without food. And of course, it came from a very distorted mindset. So I'm not promoting anorexia. However, though, with what I know and what I've experienced, is I had a knowing to some degree, although it came from a distorted mindset, but I had a knowing inside of me that food, solid food, or at least the density of eating a large quantity of food, was not right for me.
Mm.
And this is something that I realized a few years ago. I was like, oh, okay, I actually tapped into something back then. Already knew that the body was never designed to consume so much density, but I was just in a dark place. But I would say that there was this initiatory moment in my life when I actually spent a significant amount of time without much food in my body. So of course, it didn't really lead me to good places, because my mindset and my emotional state was not correct. I wasn't feeding on light necessarily. Obviously, I was dropping weight and becoming skinny and not healthy. But again, just energetically, and when it comes to the breatharian journey, I tapped into some truth. And I feel that anyone, and it's mainly women, although there are some men in that category, but almost, I don't want to generalize anyone and anything, but anyone that has ever experienced anorexia on some level, and it may or may not manifest in this life, but on some level, they already have that breatharian knowledge inside of them. On a deeper spiritual level, if we put aside the superficial reasons for a person wanting to starve themselves, if it's body image, or there's a lot to unpack in that package, in terms of traumas, and on a spiritual level, just having a hard time on this planet and wanting to disappear and just not wanting to be here. And so, the becoming skinny is kind of like a way to diminish and disappear, right? But after moving through so many layers and learning about Breatharianism and being exposed to certain things, and I learned that actually in ancient Rome, or in ancient times, there were women practicing what was called holy anorexia.
Holy.
Holy anorexia.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That
I
was
learned it from Nicholas, actually. Nicholas from Italy, a few years ago, that I listened to one of his talks, and the truth that resonated in my heart when I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, that feels so true, that I won't be surprised if I had a previous life as a nun. You know, it was practiced mainly by nuns
Okay.
that were devoted to Christ. So as an act of sacrifice and devotion, they renounced everything, including food.
Mm.
And so it was a very devotional act to rise above, right, the physical human temptations, and to renounce food altogether. And it was called holy anorexia. And those women were feared, actually, because they attained great powers. Yeah.
When you talk about great powers, could you give an example of something that they might have attained during that period?
Well, what we call great powers is just things that this is the human potential, like telepathy, or yeah, being able to heal through touch, you know, what we call Reiki, or through sound vibration, or um, teleportation, psychic ability, you know, x-ray vision, all these things that are available to us as humans. Back then, those women were seen as
Wow.
witches. They had to be,
And,
they had to be destroyed.
and they were doing this amongst the Romans.
I believe it was ancient Rome. Yeah, it was like
Wow.
it was the Christian church, you know?
Wow.
So those women were feared. I mean, they were very revered in some way as well, because they were able to, yeah, transcend the physical, body.
That is amazing. That is
Mhm.
amazing. You know, Noah, as you were speaking, you know, Violet is saying, we are touching here on feminine alchemy, the original one, not the one we see in the mainstream spirituality today. So it does feel very different. What you're talking about feels very ancient, but what Violet here is saying, she's calling it feminine alchemy. You would
I
agree?
love that. Absolutely. Feminine alchemy, right on point. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, one needs to move in the direction of holy anorexia to attain that, but, you know, as we move the clock forward in linear time, this is what we know as, yeah, being food free or living on light. And it's returning back to our original blueprint, our natural state, which also contains those great powers, but they're not anything special.
Yeah,
These are powers that are available to all of us.
right. I agree. So when it comes to this journey in particular, you know, some people, they do come into this new wavelength or new broadband, you know, vibration or frequency due to either, you know, inspiration or desperation. So when it wasn't like the desperation of wanting to disappear, like you said, the vibration of, or the mentality of anorexia, wanting to be skinny, wanting to kind of fade into the background, not wanting to be seen, wanting to be, but the inspiration of something else. What was inspiring that made you want to keep going, that gave you life instead of the opposite?
Back then, when I was in that anorexia phase.
Well, this journey in the past 4 years
Oh,
that has given you life, or inspired you to continue. Yeah, what inspires you to keep going?
man, Jerome, sometimes I ask myself the same question. What is it that keeps me going? And it's this mysterious life force that I was talking about just earlier. I have a very resilient soul, very, very resilient soul. With all honesty, throughout my life, I had many times that I didn't want to be here. I just didn't. You know, it's it can be a tough place, this rock, for sensitive souls, for empathic souls. And so, yeah, and having the vision, knowing the heaven on earth, that this earth is really the blueprint, the natural design of this planet is not what we are seeing today in terms of human civilizations and what's occurring on the planet. And so many times that I just wanted to check out, and there's a voice inside of me, there's a spark of light that keeps giving me this oomph to keep on going. It's God. To me, it's just God, because anytime I have found myself, and it's less and less, but of course, like, I'm still human, even just recently, just as like I said, the last few weeks have been a bit of a battle, like, if I can say. I immediately pray. That's like the roller coaster that I told you, like, okay, my arms are up in the air. I'm just going to pray. And I pray to God when I don't have the answers. When, like, even if meditation, this is not helping, or all the tools that I have in my toolbox, the yoga, the whatever, is not helping, I just close, I pray, and I pray to God, and I pray and I say, help me. And that could come in the form of a friend sending me a text or a conversation or something that shows up that helps that spark of light to just get bigger again.
Right.
So again, that's my anchor.
Okay.
Just again and again, it's my anchor, what keeps me going. And yeah, just knowing that there's something here I am for, like an instrument that is meant to be played a certain way and hasn't been played yet. Like, there's a particular song or a particular harmony that is meant to be transmuted.
Okay.
And transmitted.
Yeah. Yeah, people talk about, becoming that instrument that, the universe can channel through, or that they can be played through, life can play through, or kind of like that empty flute that the breath of life can flow through and go through to play that beautiful music, with that container, keeping their container open, their channel open to be a conduit, for that transmutation, as it were, to transmute. So what is one thing that you feel that maybe people don't often realize about this journey in particular, that might be a rude awakening, might take them by surprise if they're not really ready for it? What is something like that?
Well, it's we all come into this from different backgrounds, right? And in a different way. Yeah. And although I had that feeling and that knowing, well, solid food perhaps is not necessarily the best thing for this body, but we are so conditioned, and it's all around us, and it's so embedded in our consciousness. And also, I don't want to demonize food. Yeah, right. I feel like I kind of went on that channel for a little bit after discovering Breatharianism, is like starting to have almost a war with food, especially because of my background in history, and it can be a slippery slope for many people. Like, food is not bad, and solid food, and to not demonize it, it's just to increase the awareness of how much and what and why we consume, right? So it's not so much about food being good, bad, right, wrong. It's more about having the awareness for each person, how much, what, and why. Even with juice, it's like, how much juice am I drinking and why? Why am I grabbing for this thing right now? So it's a journey of self-exploration and transforming oneself and bringing shadows into the light. That's what this journey is going to do. It's going to show us. So I would say for me, the big initiation started in 2020. So that's when I was guided to do an extended water fast. I had done 7 days back in 2012. Again, that was guided, and I didn't know anything about fasting. But this time, 2020, I already knew a lot about detoxification, and it was pure guidance to do 21 days. And that was actually after that is when Jasmuheen came into my awareness. It was a few days. I don't even remember how I came across, if it was like her YouTube channel. I really don't remember how I was led to Jasmuheen. And I had heard about Breatharianism, but it was never something that I contemplated or entertained. Or in Jasmuheen, and I watched the video, and again, that deep knowing in my heart, oh, and I saw my trajectory. I just saw it.
Yeah.
I was like, "Whoa, okay, all right."
Buckle up, strap in.
Exactly. And again, it's a journey, right? So it's the seed that was planted, but the fruit is not going to be harvested 2 weeks later. And it's been 4 years of learning a lot and changing a lot, right? Like the body needs to adjust. And more than anything else, it really is our emotions and our attachments and our mental state and our psychology and our beliefs. Like all of that is what's being purified in order to be able, not from the mind, but actually just be able to, if it's living without food or a lot less or whatever it's going to be for each individual. So I would say it was really after the second extended juice feast that I completed in like the beginning of 2023 that I started noticing very big shifts in my biology. And I've also learned to allow this process to be natural because of my background, also because of my history and the way I'm built and the way I operate. Again, the Scorpio, like all in, don't look back. You know, it can be very extreme to a fault. That there was a time, especially in 2021, when I was like really getting into all of it, that I was pushing again. I was pushing my body too much. I wasn't listening, and that's not the feminine way. I was coming to it and into it with still a masculine approach, out of balance. It was not in balance, and it was not honoring my own body. And women and men are different. I gotta say, like, we are built differently, biologically, psychologically, emotionally. There is a difference when it comes to this physical incarnation. Male, female is different, and we need to honor that. And as women, it's important that we listen and that we tune into that intuition, tune into our bodies, and tune into that little girl inside of us and give her the safety that she needs in order for this journey to actually be sustainable. So I had a point that I realized, well, this is a life game that I'm playing here. This is not just a juice feast that I'm doing for 3 months. You know, I've seen my trajectory. I know where this is going. So in order for this to unfold with ease and grace, I need to be in a space of ease and grace. I need to have my nervous system stable and grounded, especially, again, because of my history.
Right.
That damaged and traumatized my nervous system to a very profound extent.
Yeah. Ease and grace, those two words, those really resonate. You know, when you talk about having ease, having grace, you know, even having compassion, having kindness, you know, having love, having acknowledgement, you know, to see yourself, to hear your body, to tune in, to really listen, as you say, you know, that feminine way of allowing, of being receptive, you know, that receptivity. Because I feel like, you know, and I would say is with my journey as well, there's a different feeling that's even revealing when you're going through all the healing and, you know, you see there's no ceiling, right? You see you can keep going if you want, right? You can keep growing if you want. And you see your trajectory, you see your direction, you feel that connection. But then there's also like a feeling, you might not want to go back, but there might even be a fear like, can I even go back? You know, like, can I go back if I want to? And you might tell yourself psychologically or mentally, yeah, I can go back if I want to. But then your body, with all the changes and adaptations, might have a different story. So you've experienced that as well?
Oh, Jerome, 100%. 100%. And I feel that on some level, the resistance in us comes from that place because there's a deeper knowing. I won't go back. I can't, I wouldn't be able to go back. And so we resist the change because we know that once we cross the threshold, it's like, no, you can't get back on the plane and go back to where you came from. The plane has landed, and now you're in a new territory. And so, yeah, I've been experiencing the changes in my body just on a physical level of certain things. And when I say things, it's like even fruits, right? Because I've been mainly just eating fruits for many years. And of course, I had some deviations and whatever things that I succumbed to because of emotional stuff or attachments or the addiction to flavor and texture. That's like the last frontier. It's not so much the food itself, but like how it tastes, you know, whatever it stimulates in the brain. But it's been mainly fruits, and I started noticing that particular fruits that I used to love, Jerome, I was able to eat buckets of them, were no longer of interest even. I would see it, and it's like, not interested at all. Like it wasn't appealing, and that's how I started learning, and that's what I teach as well. Is like, let it be natural. Play with the toy as long as you want to play with it, until just like a kid plays with a toy, and then you see them walk away and they don't care about the toy no more. And we can rush it. That's the thing. It's like the ego is, well, I want it to happen tomorrow or next week, or no. The soul knows exactly the perfect timeline for each and every one of us. And to not compare, that's again very important, to not compare that if I see Jerome on a certain trajectory, or whoever it is moving in a certain pace, so to speak, but that's their journey. Yeah. And so I got caught up in that for a while, until I again went back into myself, and I got to create a space of love, because it's only from the space of love that even living without food is even possible, because it's really not about the food. It's not about the food at all. It's about our state of being. Yeah, so if I kept creating, and that was my moment of awakening also, if I keep creating a state of battle and unease in my system, because I'm not listening, because I'm not tuning in, because I'm not embracing the little girl, food freedom will never be a possibility, because there's still a war inside of me. There's still an unease. That's not love.
Right.
So alongside the noticeable changes in my body, and genuinely, naturally seeing things fall away because I wasn't interested, there were a lot of, and still many, realizations in terms of how to honor myself, how to love myself through this journey. Because, hey, Jerome, you know, it's not, again, in our society, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to walk away from. Right? Like food and everything that comes with it holds so many different attachments and feelings and memories, and wow, it's like an array of experiences that go along with food, and what it is and what it represents, and we each have our own relationship with it.
Right.
So that has to be factored in, and has to be honored and respected, and allow yourself to be guided and let the journey unfold, because the body has its own intelligence too. When it's ready to let go of something, it just happens very, very naturally. And there's so much ease. Again, going back to the ease and the grace, there's ease in that. Like, I look at certain things right now and I like, oh my God, I used to love this, and it doesn't do anything for me. Like a piece of, like mango, for example, I still love how it tastes and I smell it, and but it's, you know, it doesn't have the strong appeal that it used to have. And at this point, I really don't even feel comfortable with solid food in my body, even if it's fruits. Yeah, like it has to be blended, or of course the juices, or if it is like a solid fruit, it needs to be super, super soft and creamy. Um, yeah, and even then, like the changes are happening so quickly that I noticed that many times I would choose to put something in my body because it's more like a mental thing. It's still like the attachment to the flavor, to the sensation, and
Right. Right. You called it
it's
the
more than
final
that.
frontier. I love what you called it. You said food, you know, it's like flavors and textures are the final frontier, you know?
Yeah,
That's a great way to put it.
yeah, and I'll share this. You know, just recently, what I found myself doing. You know, and some may say, well, no, that's a bit of a distorted eating, but knowing what I know that it's not that. It was just, I found myself just missing certain flavors, or, you know, so like a raw dish,
Mhm.
right? A salad, even, that I would just chew it just for the sensation of the chewing and the flavor, and then I spit it out because I don't want it in my body. And that's a very interesting, Jerome. It's very vulnerable, and it's a very interesting experience to have.
Mhm.
And even now, you know, when I make juice, or even when I spit the food, and then I look at it and I'm like, all this mess,
Mhm.
the thought of having it in my
Mhm.
body is not, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, Rocky, she did the same thing. You know, Rocky Chari, she's one of my
Yeah.
mentors. Yeah. And that was something that she introduced me to as a method to kind of get her past and keep her going, because she recognized the same thing. She said, you know, this wants it. She pointed to her tongue, but then this doesn't want it. You know, she pointed to her stomach, like this doesn't want it, but this does want it. So she appeased this, you know, but then she would, you know, save this, like you don't have to have this inside you to relish and enjoy what it is and appreciate what it is. And yeah, this is just, I mean, there's so many levels, Noah. There's so many levels of just even someone going through the grieving process of a previous version of themselves that really did enjoy this, and now all of a sudden has sort of an indifference and maybe even an apathy towards something that brought them joy at one point, or something that was so socially connected with their families, and they always had that, and they were growing up, and it meant so much to them and so much sentimental value to this, but now they no longer are of one accord with that. So it gets really deep, and I really thank you for all the advice that you're giving and that you've given, you know, during this conversation, because I think that it helps so many people that are struggling and striving and think that they have to be arriving to this point, but you're just telling them, no, just appreciate every step along the way. Like, just give yourself that ease and grace, because you know, who else is going to give it to you? You're everywhere we go, there we are. We have to live with ourselves for the rest of our life, you know, you're gonna be with yourself forever. So yeah, this is really great advice. Thank you for this. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Jerome. I so appreciate the space and all these conversations that you are having with such amazing beings. And I, yeah, it's not a goal, you know, food freedom. It's not a goal. It's not. It's not about that. If that happens, then it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll experience it. It will be inevitable.
Right.
It will be undeniable. It will be inevitable. It will be a natural thing, and you'll find yourself not wanting food or wanting less or whatever, however it's going to transpire in your own life for each and every one of us. But for many people, you know, again, we all are so conditioned in a masculine way, and it can become an egoic. It's a very sneaky thing and tricky thing, like the ego latch onto goals. So now being a breatharian becomes a goal, and it's like, no, this is not the game that we are playing. This is the game of love.
Yes.
All of us, we all share the exact same purpose. We might have individual expressions and different costumes that we wear and different life's missions, and we all have the exact same mission, exact same common mission, which is to return home to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And to know who we truly are. If along the way food falls away, then be it. Yeah. And most likely it will in some way, shape, or form. The more we merge with who we truly are. And then when it's truly just like fully we are embodied in that natural state and this field of love, then all that is false is going to fall away anyway. So we know that food, solid food, the consumption is that of falsehood to some degree. And so it will just happen. It will just occur. So it's not the goal. The goal is to return home.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Wow, Noah, thank you for this, you know, just for your testimony, for your vulnerability, and for your transparency, your openness, your honesty. You know, these aren't always the easiest things for people to talk about, but I really appreciate you for talking about it today because, wow, you know, I see the transformation and I'm with you. You know, I'm on this journey with you. I'm walking with you. I'm beside you. I'm behind you. I support you. And yeah, let's just continue and see where it goes.
Yeah, well, again, Jerome, it's so amazing to watch you soaring in the way that you have and having all these amazing conversations and sharing this truth. I feel that more and more people are opening up to this. So thank you for everything that you've been doing and sharing.
Absolutely. So till the next time, enjoy. I mean, take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
See you.
Bye.
Much love.